Welcome, chess family. This is King Pawn versus King Part 2. Now remember what I said. This is called opposition. So whoever moves out of opposition loses opposition. Okay? So if black moves first, then white can win. White can promote its pawn to a queen. But if it's white to move, then white cannot win. This game will end in a stalemate draw. So let's go over it. Here are the rules. Wherever white goes, instead of going to the opposite square, we follow white. Okay? So we stay on top of it. White goes back to D3, we go to D5. White goes to E3, we go to E5. So we follow white. White goes to E2, where do we go? We go to E4. White goes to D1, where do we go? D3. Now, here's the trick. We can't follow white now because the white pawn is on D2 and it attacks C3. So we can't move our king here. But what we don't want to do is go to C4. You never want to be two squares from the king on the same file. So what we do is, this is very important, so try to remember this. We just back up one. Now, if white goes to C2, we go back to the original rule. We just follow the king. Check. Now the white pawn's attacking us. We get right in front of it. We're forcing the white king to go to D2. If the king goes anywhere else, we capture the pawn. So the king is forced to go to D2. Now from this position, we just head back one square. Always remember that. In this position, you just go back one square. You don't go to a different file. You stay on the same file as the king. Now when the king tries that, a little slick move, you just go back to D4. Forcing the king back to D2. Remember, the king can't go anywhere else. If it try to go here, we capture the pawn. Here, 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 or here, we capture the pawn. So the king must go to D2. And since it's our go, we just back up one square. So the king steps out on C3. You already know, we go to C5. He checks us. We go back in front of the pawn, forcing the king to go to D3 because the king has to protect his pawn. Otherwise, it's a draw. So we'll keep doing the same thing. So now, once again, when the king steps behind his pawn, we just move our king back one. And when the king come out, we just follow it. The check, we go back in front of the pawn, and we do this over and over and over. Once we go back in front of the pawn, we step back one. And we just follow the king. Check. Where do we go? We go in front of the pawn. Now, where do we go from here? Remember, just back one. And this is very important. We will show a different variation. In front of the pawn, stalemate. Because our king can't go here because of the pawn attacks that square. We can't go to E8 because the pawn attacks E8. We can't go to C7 because white king attacks that square. And we can't go to E7 because the king attacks that square. So this is a stalemate draw. Okay, let's bring it back to this position. Remember, if it's black go, black is supposed to just move one square back. But here's the dangers if black doesn't follow that rule. Let's say if black moves to the side. Well, here's the problem. Remember, the rule is, so now the king moves to the center of the pawn. We push the pawn up. This would not be a stalemate now because the king can go to E7. And once that happens, we could just get our king on the 7th rank. And you know, when our king is on the 7th rank, it could just walk the pawn in for a queen. So in this position, the king must go straight back. So let's watch one more time. King goes straight back. White king to C6. Here's the opposition. Whichever king moves loses the opposition.